Hello everyone, it is Babyyells back with another video, and today I'm finally doing that story time that you guys were requesting, and we're gonna talk about my history of drug use, abuse, recovery, and relapsing. What a fun subject to talk about, right?
You think a depressed person could make this?
So I thought the best and most organized way to talk about this very complex, deep subject and part of my past, just listing off all the drugs I've taken in my life in order. And then while I talk about that drug, I'm going to talk about the place I was in at the time, mentally and physically, and how I got out of it. Before we get into all that though, I'm going to be giving you a little mini life update because a few things have changed around here. Firstly, we finally moved in. The couch, vanity, desk, and this little thing goes near the front of our door that we put our shoes under and our keys in and stuff. I don't know what it's called. It's called a console? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but it's cute. Got some furniture moved in today, so that's what I've been doing pretty much all day, is moving and cleaning. But even though that's a lot of hard work, it is really exciting because our apartment is finally starting to come together. And since our apartment is starting to come together, we are going to be adopting a kitten soon. Yay! We both wanted one for a really long time now. I used to have my baby kitty with me at home. I got her when I was 11 and I got her as a kitten, and she's just been my cat. But since moving here, I just have my lizard and my boyfriend's cat, and we don't really have a baby together. So instead of having a baby, we are going to be adopting a kitten in the spring. So we're going to be starting to look for baby kitties now, and until the summer, until we find one that is a good fit for us and that we love a lot. Daddy also said yes to getting a chinchilla, a bird, a snake, and another lizard. So I'm probably going to have to do a little pet introductory video sometime in the future. Mental health wise, I would say, I have my good days and my bad days. I'm starting to get on the proper meds, and I finally got an intake for a psychiatric center, so I can get a proper assessment. I can find a proper psychologist to watch me over a long period of time and give me therapy, and I will also be starting DBT therapy, group therapy, in the next few months, and I think it is a year-long program. But my mom gets Air Canada miles from each session, so at the end of it, we're gonna go on a little celebratory vacation. Celebratory. Why can't I speak today? Physical health-wise, I'm still having horrible chronic back pains, but my doctor finally gave me a requisition thing to go to a chiropractor, and hopefully I'll get my back sorted out soon, because that is really a downer. When you want to work, you want to be productive, but you are in a lot of pain, and my back pain usually wraps around my breast area, so it feels like I can't breathe, and it is definitely muscular, because muscle relaxers help, and so do hot baths and heating pads. But yeah, we need to get this sorted out. I think in my last life update, I was still talking about how I was in a lot of chronic pain because of my back. Okay, and now the part you guys have all been waiting for, the story time. Now, let's start it off with the first drug I ever took, alcohol, when I was 5 years old. I have an Eastern European father, and one of his main ways of getting my sister and I to stop fighting when we were little was to make us take shots of whiskey. One, because it burned our throats, and two, because we would obviously get drunk off of one shot and just get silly and make up. I was getting drunk at 5, and my dad was okay with this because we're an Eastern European family. My mom's not Eastern European, but my dad is, and I grew up heavily with more of his culture than my mom's. My mom wasn't really involved in my life much, except for the witchiness stuff, which if you guys want to hear about that, I can do another story time about what it was like growing up with a witch as a parent. But yeah, it started with the alcohol, and it did not stop there. We were drinking at dinner, having glasses of wine. My dad would make us like mixed drinks. Like I remember him making us pina coladas when we were little. I remember every New Year's getting wasted since I was 5 years old, since I can remember. I actually remember one time, maybe I was 5 and my sister was 6. And we were both wasted off of champagne, and we were watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yeah. My sister was off being drunk and toddling around the house. I was laying on my dad's lap. He was explaining to me what orgies were. That's a whole other thing. But then we just hear a big crash boom, and turns out my sister, who's 6 years old and wasted, fell down the basement stairs and got pretty injured. Safe to say my mom was not too thrilled with my father about that, and then after that, you know, she was a lot less on board with him letting us drink. He would still do it, but it was a more like, no, shh, don't tell mom kind of thing. So that was great. Yeah, the first drug that I started with and sort of got addicted to was alcohol.
I don't mind telling you that I have an addiction. I do.
Now, before I move on to the next drug that I tried, I just want to give you a little bit of an insight on how my brain was working at that age. I had seen, you know, smoking. My parents were both smokers. I had seen, you know, smoking. My parents were both smokers. And they were big time like hippies when we were younger and before we were born. So there was, you know, not negative talk around drugs. It was very neutral. So I always had this mindset. I remember walking downtown and seeing everyone smoking, and I thought to myself, when I grow up and I am legally allowed to, I'm going to start smoking. I don't know where that thought came from or why, but I just knew that I wanted to be a smoker when I was older, and that was probably because I saw my parents do it, and partly because just everyone was doing it. TV shows at the time really glamorized it, so I think that's where it sort of came from. And I also remember when Spring Breakers came out. I think I was either in middle school, like early middle school or late elementary school, and seeing them do drugs, and I knew in my head, like I had told myself that I was going to be a smoker. I knew that I was going to do drugs when I was older as well. I was like, I can't wait until I'm in the situation where I'm in high school, college, whatever, where I have access to drugs, and I am definitely going to take them. Well, I feel like before I even really started with heavy drugs, I had this mindset that, you know, that's what I wanted to do, and that is how I wanted to cope with things. I think from before I even started drugs, I had that addict mindset, and I think some people are just born with it, especially if you suffer with mental illness and other mental physical disorders in your life. I think you're very prone to finding that escapism, and a lot of times it's easiest found in drugs.
Any drugs in this house?
If there
Put that down for a second.
If there are, you better find them and give them to me immediately.
Oh God, this is gonna be a long one. Okay, moving on to the second drug I ever tried, nicotine, through cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes when I was 12 years old. When I really got into Lana Del Rey, and I think once I hit puberty and depression hit, I saw that, you know, that's the way that my father and my sister used to cope, and a lot of other people in my family as well. So I would start stealing cigarettes from my father and from my sister and smoking them in the alley, in the backyard or front yard if my parents were gone. I would smoke on my way to school, after school, lunch breaks, pretty much whenever I could. And that bled into middle school and high school and into, I was about 20 years old, so 2 years ago. And a lot of you watching this may think it's just a cigarette, it's not like drugs, but I consider like nicotine cigarette drugs. I think anything that you can get addicted to, it can be a drug. And not only was I addicted to the nicotine, but I was also addicted to the lack of appetite that it gave me, especially because I was diagnosed with anorexia. I had this obsession with being thin. I had always been kind of chubbier my whole life, and my father would really, you know, point it out, my weight, and sort of bully me and make fun of me for it. So I loved that smoking cigarettes was kind of like a meal replacement for me, and it did make me hungry. In fact, it made me feel, at first it made me feel kind of nauseous, but yeah, then it was a lot easier to starve myself. So moving on to the next drug, but just keep in mind this whole time I'm also smoking cigarettes. I stopped smoking cigarettes when I was 20 years old, and we are not there yet. Okay, and now moving on to the third drug I've ever tried. I bet you guys can guess this one easy. Marijuana. Yes, the third drug I ever tried was weed, and I think the first time I tried it, I was 12 years old. I think I was smoking with my sister and her friends. We smoked a joint, but I didn't smoke again until I was 13. And that was when I really started, like, really smoking weed. And I will tell you one thing. I cannot function without it. I'm still very much addicted to it, but I don't think it's as bad as a lot of other things, and I think it can do a lot more good than it can do harm. I mean, there's like a 0% rate of people dying from marijuana overdoses. And as you know, in Canada, it was made legal here because there are just so many more health benefits to it than there are not, and things like cigarettes and alcohol are legal, and weed is a lot less horrible on your body than weed and alcohol. But for me, when I first started, it was bad because I was smoking a lot. Now I'll maybe have like 1 or 2 bowls every once in a while. But back then I was smoking maybe 10 bowls at once. And I would actually have seizures from overdosing. It's just called greening out. I would have seizures, my eyes would roll back, I would start shaking and convulsing. I remember one time I fell down the stairs, and my boyfriend at the time like stepped out of the way and just let me fall. He did not make any attempt to catch me. Love that for me. Once I got into high school, the weed and cigarettes really picked up. I was smoking weed all the time. I was skipping school to smoke weed. I was staying home from school to just smoke weed all day, and I was smoking over a pack of cigarettes a day as well. I would just chain smoke them at lunch, smoke before school, after school, before bed, in the middle of the night when I wake up. Like, I was having a lot of cigarettes and a lot of weed. One of the things I had actually kind of cooled down on at this point was the alcohol. I was only really drinking socially. If I was with friends or at a party, I would drink and get wasted because high school, you know. But because I was mainly like just smoking weed all day, and I would mostly hang out with stoners and people that didn't really like party, but you know, we'd smoke weed and play video games, the drinking became a lot less. Okay, and now we are 14 years old. Yay, good for us. We're moving on to the next drug, which was cocaine. Mixed with other stuff, I'm not quite sure what it was. I just had this experience when I was 14 years old. I went to a park party with my friends. People used to throw parties in parks. So yeah, we would hang out at a park, and these were much older men that me and my friend were hanging out with, and they offered us coke, and we did it. And then, you know, it started getting late, and my friend was like, you know, it's getting late, let's go home. And I was really high off of coke, so I did not want to leave. I just wanted to do more. So she left without me, and then I was just alone with these men that I didn't know doing drugs. And they offered me this funnel. It was like a paper funnel. You put in your nose, like funnel into your nose. And it had a mixture of drugs in it. I know cocaine was one of them. I think Molly was one of them. But it was just called the funnel, and it meant like you just take whatever drugs they put in it. And I did that. I did that at 14, okay? Yes, I'm fucked up. But after that, it was kind of weird. It was like my first time trying hard drugs. And don't worry, I was safe. I found my way to another friend's house to spend the night. I think it was around 4 a.m. that I realized it was just me alone in a park with a bunch of older men doing drugs, and I was like, doesn't seem right. So I left, and I was safe. But it was then that I really felt mature, kind of. I don't know why, but I felt like, you know, I'm really a teenager now. It's not like make-believe, it's not pretend. I'm in high school, I'm doing drugs, I'm hanging out with people who are doing drugs. It's just like the movies. I think that's what it felt like to me. I felt normal because it was replicating a lot of movies and TV shows that I was watching at the time, like Skins, like Spring Breakers, lovely, 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 non-depressing, non-drug propaganda things. It wasn't until I was 15 that I did cocaine again. It was in the summer, and me and my friend were bored and we were wondering if we could get it, and we were like, why don't we just do it together, you know? I had told her that about my experience when I was 14, and she said that she wanted to try cocaine, so I was like, you know what, let's go find some. And when you're a teenager and you live in Toronto, you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who can get you any kind of drug. So we were able to find cocaine pretty easily. We got it, we spent the whole day doing it, and for a long time we went on a cocaine/Molly bender, but I'll get into the Molly in a bit. So first we were doing a lot of cocaine, and I was asking my sister where I can get some one night, and she told me about this amazing guy named Jonah. Now, I'll probably talk more about Jonah in other story times because we have a long history and he did a lot of stuff in my life that will probably stick with me forever. But my sister, you know, she had gotten weed and Molly from him before, and she knew that he sold a bunch of different kinds of drugs, so she told me to go there. So me and my friend went there to his house, and he gave us, just went there for Molly. Just wanted to do some Molly, like it's totally okay. Also, if you live in Toronto, you know this. If you don't live in Toronto, here's a little tidbit. Most Molly is just meth, okay? It's really hard to find like pure Molly in Toronto. It's mostly meth, so keep in mind when I say we were on a Molly bender that it was meth. So we went to Jonah's house to get the Molly. He gives us Molly and says, you know, if you guys want to hang out later, I'm going to have a few friends over and we're going to be doing some coke and stuff like that. So we go home, we take the Molly. We are high as fuck and bored as fuck. We go over to Jonah's, and they are a bunch of guys there, all doing coke, and they give us a lot of free coke, which if you know, you know. If you don't know, that is a drug dealer's way of getting you hooked. So that, you know, they might waste $100 in one night for giving you a free gram of coke, but they know that you're going to keep coming back for it, which is what we did. We kept coming back. There was actually a guy, I remember that night, he was a soldier that was doing drugs with us there, and he told us, he said, girls, get out of this house and don't come back. And I really wish that we had listened to him at the time, but we didn't. We were idiots, and we kept coming back and doing coke. And my friend, you know, was a lot better, more controlled than me. I think it was also the fact that her parents were a lot more stricter, that she wasn't really allowed out. I would go there a lot of times myself and hang out there till like 5, 6 a.m. Then, you know, head to school in the morning, and after school I would just head right back there and do the same thing over again. It was also, he was really weird. He was sexually inappropriate with us on numerous occasions. He had statutory raped several girls, and my friend no longer felt comfortable going there, but still wanted drugs for us. So of course, she would send the fearless me to go by myself. He was the type of guy that would purposefully take a very long time giving you your drugs so that you would have to stay at his place and hang out with him. Very sad and very lonely. So like got beat up really bad and got bashed in the head with a weight, and ever since then he had really bad, like, I think he had brain damage, honestly, because he kind of lost his mind after that and became really dangerous and scary. He had threatened me on numerous occasions with weapons if I tried to leave. He would threaten to kidnap me. He would threaten to sexually assault me. He one time pointed a gun at me. You know, obviously, I was very terrified. I was terrified that whole time, but I kept going back because I was addicted to the drugs. And me and my friend, we made it a habit of every weekend just doing like a bunch of coke, a bunch of Molly, watching TV, doing silly, goofy shit. And we did that for about 6 months until I had to be hospitalized. My parents at the time didn't know it was because of cocaine. abuse. They had thought it was just because of insomnia. Little did they know the insomnia was caused by the cocaine abuse. And then also my drug dealer, Jonah, he went to prison after a while, and I couldn't get any more, so I was going through a heavy withdrawal, so I did have to be hospitalized. And after that, I got a month-long leave from school for like mental health reasons. And when I came back, I felt like I was in a much, much better place. Then come knocking at the door is summer, and what do me and my friend do that next summer when I'm 17 years old, because my birthday is in January, so it's in the middle of the school year, so by the next summer, I was 17 years old. I meet someone from my past, someone from elementary school, and we kind of hit it off and fall in love and start dating. And he turns out to be a Xanax dealer. What do? I get a lot of free Xanax, and I get addicted to that free Xanax. And if you don't know, Xanax is an anti-anxiety. So if you're someone like me that has multiple disorders and mental illnesses, that drug, when you take it for the first time, feels like everything you've been missing in life. It sounds really cheesy, but you know that the first episode of Euphoria, when Rue is explaining the first time she had liquid Valium and how she felt like, wow, this is what I've been looking for my entire life. That's what it was like for me trying Xanax for the first time. I felt calm and safe and protected, and as someone that came from a past of childhood abuse and sexual abuse, this is what I had been looking for years. And now I found it, and I wasn't gonna let that go. So I was addicted to Xanax for a long time, and if you don't know, Xanax addictions can destroy not just your mental and physical health, but your personality, and it's really not good. Right now, actually, I live in Toronto. There's a huge Xanax epidemic going around. I think at least 5 people I know from my past have died recently from a Xanax overdose. And that's mostly because not only is Xanax an epidemic, but also depression is a huge epidemic here in Toronto as well, especially among the Gen Z generation. I don't think I need to explain why, but it is. So yeah, the next drug that I tried was Xanax, and that was, I think, my favorite of all time. And sometimes I still think about it, I really do, even though now I'm in a much better place. The only drugs I take are those prescribed to me by a doctor. I do drink, but I'm also 22, so, you know, I don't even drink that much. I drink very socially. I smoke weed, not to the extent that I did it when I was 14. But Xanax is the one that I feel like I'll keep going back to, no matter how many times I am recovered or clean. And I was someone that never really needed rehab. I was always someone that was very good at going through withdrawal. I think weed helped with that a lot, taking care of the withdrawal pains and shakes and aches. And I didn't want to get caught either. Take in mind, I was still a teenager and living at home, and not a very stable home. So I didn't want to get caught. So I would do anything to not get caught, like, you know, having to be hospitalized for insomnia when really I just need to get over a cocaine withdrawal. Xanax, I was kind of forced to go into withdrawal with that because school started and my boyfriend and me broke up. So I wasn't able to get it anymore unless I wanted to message my ex, which of course no one wants to do. So I stopped doing Xanax for a very, very long time. And then 18 to 19 was very good for me. I was only drinking socially. I wasn't doing any drugs other than weed. I was working full-time retail. This was after I graduated, though. I was starting, you know, to lean off of being a prostitute and just joining the regular workforce. You know, I had a boyfriend who was a very clean, straight guy, and I really thought that I was starting to get my life together. But as you know, as if you are an addict, you know, when you are an addict, you are an addict for life. I'm someone that is not necessarily addicted to anything in particular, but I'm very addicted to the escape, to the euphoria, to not worrying, to not feeling like I have to fake something. I was addicted to the feeling. So for many years, I didn't do anything except for smoking weed and drinking alcohol. Then once I went through a breakup, that all kind of went to shit, and I started, drinking more heavily, very heavily. I had to quit my job because I was hospitalized. I think that was mostly due to autistic burnout and not drug related. But yeah, my life changed a lot, and then I entered into a really abusive relationship where he would very, very much heavily, aggressively encourage me to take drugs. This was also a guy who was physically abusing me, sodomizing me, anything horrible that you can think of. So yeah, I was taking drugs to numb the physical and emotional pain and to just, get me through the night. And eventually I got up the courage to leave him. It took me a long time, but I did. And then I started to date another person who was not abusive in any way, but still doing drugs. So I'm constantly around people who are doing drugs, and I'm trying not to. So it's very, very hard, especially if you're an addict and you've been doing drugs since you were 5. So he would never pressure me or tell me to do drugs, but it was always in front of me. So after a while, eventually, I would be like, can I have some of that Coke? Can I have some of that Xanax? And then I slipped back into that cycle. But it wasn't as much as it used to be. Again, it was only once in a while on weekends. I became really attached to this person. I think he was my favorite person for a long, long time. When he left me, I was completely devastated, completely. I was broken. I was sitting out on the street, dissociated, and when my mom brought me inside, I was only banging my head against the floor, the wall, my hands, everything. So she gave me Oxy for a week straight. So I developed an Oxy addiction, and after that, especially because, I didn't want to deal with the pain of not having my love anymore, I was taking pretty much any drug I could to numb myself. And then I had a big meltdown and I was hospitalized again, and I finally got put on medications that help, and they actually do help with the drug cravings too. I'm on Seroquel right now. It's an antipsychotic. I take it in the day and a higher dose at night to help me fall asleep, and I'm also on clonazepam to take as needed because I'm prone to panic attacks, but I only take it then, and it is heavily monitored by a doctor. So I'm in a much better place now. I still struggle with the thoughts. Of course, I still want Xanax sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, I could really use like a bump of Coke right now. And the drugs that I do take are shrooms, weed, and the ones prescribed to me. Every once in a while, though, I will still have a Xanax, especially if I run out of my clonazepam, because it is an anti-anxiety. And luckily I have a boyfriend who very carefully monitors my use of it. If it weren't for him, I probably would get addicted again, but he is amazing. Now, what I still have to talk about, though, is the fact that, as you can tell through this story, I stopped and started a lot. Relapse is no joke. It is really no joke. One of the major relapses I had was when my boyfriend, my favorite person, broke up with me. A huge relapse I had was when I finished watching Euphoria. Yes, I had a relapse after Euphoria. And another big relapse that I had was after I had been done doing Xanax for a while with my boyfriend who sold it, and I was, still prostituting. I was a prostitute from 15 to 19. So towards the end of that, I started relapsing again because it was just really hard to cope with. I also was still dealing with my abusive father, so the drugs gave me courage, gave me confidence, took away the pain, whatever you want to call it. It just numbs you to the unpleasant feelings, and a lot of people would give a lot for that. Like their money to drugs. The the very sad thing about drugs is how much it takes away from a person. At first it gives you something, it gives you that freedom, it gives you that feeling that you're looking for, but just slowly over time it strips away not just your money, but everything about who you are. And the horrible thing about being an addict is that you are an addict for life. I've known people that have been sober for 10, 12, 20 years and still relapse every now and again. It is something that you actively have to work on every single day. It is a thing that you consciously have to do. You consciously have to make the decision to not do drugs, to not solve your problems with drugs, but to look for other ways of coping. Age regression for me is a huge help because when I'm little, I don't even want to do drugs. I don't even know anything. I don't even know drugs. That's just not in my head, and it's still a very great way to cope. So when people like talk shit about my regression, I'm like, you have no idea the kind of help and savior it has been in my life. Now, a lot of people when looking at me probably wouldn't assume that I struggle with addiction, drugs, and have that kind of past, but the thing with addiction is it is quite literally a disease. And with any disease, you don't have to have physical symptoms to have the disease and to struggle with the disease. And it's sad that still, after all these years, most of the population, I can safely say, doesn't consider addiction an actual disease that needs to be treated like a disease and not like you are some kind of criminal. Because if you ask any addict if they had a choice to be completely clean and not have any cravings for it and be happy, they would choose that 100%. No one wants to have to rely on something like that. No one wants to feel that way. No one wants to be perceived that way. And who knows? One day I might relapse and I'll have a story time about that, and it's gonna be something that I struggle with my whole life. The important thing is if you have good in your heart, you have good people around you, you're in a safe, healthy space where even if you are feeling those cravings, you can openly talk about it and get help before you do something that might end your life. Honestly, like, I still crave Xanax, but hearing about all the people that I know that have been overdosing and dying from it, it is a reality check. It is something that scares you into what could happen if you go too far. And that line is a very unclear line. It's a very blurry line because everyone is different. Everyone's tolerance is different. I've had several overdoses, accidental and on purpose, and it's not fun. But with all that, I just touched the thingies. But with all that being said, it is the end of the video. I think that is all I have to say on the subject. I've told you a lot about me now. I think you guys have a lot more insight as to who I am as a person, and the things that I struggle with on the daily. I hope I didn't trigger anyone or bum anyone out too much, but I really hope the best that can come out of this video is someone learns something or someone sees this and gets help if they are in a situation that I was in before, because you're not a monster. If you are, you're not a monster. It's a disease, and it's something that you need help. You need to get help for, but still a person, and you're still you. Never changed the person that they knew, so it was never really considered a big problem. I think that I atone that a lot to my masking skills, and my mom told me one time, she said, if you're ever at the point where I can obviously tell that you're on drugs and doing drugs, then it's a problem. Because if you're no longer able to hide it anymore, then you know it's running out of control. Not saying that this is something that you should do and hide. I don't condone doing drugs at all. Weed is fine if you're of legal age. So is alcohol. That's your choice. So is cigarettes. That's your choice. They're all legal. I'm a huge psychedelic advocate. I think everyone should try at least one psychedelic once in their life and have that experience. But don't do drugs, kids, okay? Learn from me. And on that note, we have come to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. I appreciate it so much. I was really surprised when you picked this one, but I'm just trying to be as open and honest as possible. Leave a comment down below if you want to see another story time from me and what kind of story time you want to hear. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I put polls on my stories every once in a while of what YouTube video I should film. I'm not sure what the next one is going to be. Maybe a room tour makeup tutorial now that I have my vanity here. But I'll probably do a poll about that again. So go follow me on Instagram now. The link is in the description box down below. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with anyone if you think they would enjoy this content or benefit from seeing this video. It might help someone, you don't know. All of my social media will be linked in the description box down below, including my Twitch, Discord, Patreon, OnlyFans. Is that it? I think that's all of it. Oh, and all of my wish lists will be linked in the description box down below. If you want to get a custom collar like this, you can order yours today from PawsomePacis. That is me and Stormy's shop. That will also be linked in the description box down below. You don't just have to get plain like this. Comes in multiple different styles. You can get them decoed, not decoed, different colors. It's all up to you because it's customized. Yay! So, think about that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!